Um, I don't like it when people attach words to other words in ways that are like that change the meaning of that word. Like with justice, when people add social to it, it really destroys the idea of justice. But when people add poetic to the word justice, sometimes the rest just writes itself. So some right-wing commentators, specifically Lauren Chen, who founded with her husband a media company and has been for the past year uh, uh, went full anti-Semite, full anti-Israel, accuses Jews in America of having what do you call it, divided loyalties. Her loyalties are not divided. She knows who writes the check, and it is the government of Russia, apparently, allegedly. Or, whatever we need to say to not get sued by Putin. Welcome to the reality show. Today we're going to be talking about this latest scandal, which some of us are enjoying more than others. Uh, yeah, uh, Apparently, Tenet Media is the name of the company that was founded in 2022 by Lauren Chen and her husband. They were getting a lot of money. Uh, People were paid. I mean, well, Daniel, you have all the facts. I think you've read the whole indictment. You've read it back and forth repeatedly. I think you enjoy it more, even more than I do. So I'll go to you for some of the facts on this.
So just quickly, because we had someone in the chat even earlier saying that Tim Pool is not on the left. If someone who has like pro-Russian talking points, who's pro-Trump, who pretty much aligns with everything with the sort of right wing is like left, then you can say it, but I don't know what the words even mean after that. So it just quick summary. So basically, what has happened is there's been this indictment. Basically, those once they are sort of given, they are public because in America legal processes should be public. It's in the Constitution, basically, so the people can know what's going on, and there are no legal processes sort of like behind the doors. So we have the indictment, we have the full story, and what has happened is basically two people, Russians, Konstantin Kalashnikov, which I mean is one hell of a Russian name, and uh, and also Elena Afanasieva. From now on, I'll just be referring to them as Kostya and Lena, just to save time. Basically, two of them broke two laws, or basically are being charged with breaking of two laws. One of them is FARA, which is the Foreign Agent Registration Act. What it basically means is that if you are a company or an individual that is funded by a foreign country, you basically have to register with the Department of Justice. They didn't do that, and basically that is basically what the accusation is, that they founded this media to basically they are funded by Russia. They are Russia Today employees, or what is now RT, and they've basically been paid by Russia through different shell companies, which is the second, basically the second charge, which is money laundering. They've been basically paid by shell companies to help, specifically, as Razi mentioned, Lauren Chen and her husband to found Tenet Media, and basically hire commentators to basically very much spread Russian talking points or some sort of dissent into American society. I should just mention that basically in the indictment, only because this is how it has to be, only Lena and Kostya are the ones who are actually named. All of the other ones, for example, Lauren Chen is set as founder one. But if you go through the whole thing, it's very clear who these people are talking about, because it mentions things like a Tennessee-based company by a foreign national that is existing also in the that whose parent company is in Canada, and also it specifies dates. It specifies, for example, with the commentators, it specifies the number of subscribers, how many videos have posted. So it's very easy to basically figure out who everyone is. So maybe just quickly, in total, almost $10 million were spent for this company, the Tenet Media, who, by the way, only have 3 times as many views as we do. So Russian government has spent 10 million to basically get the 3 amount of views that we have. There are videos on that channel, and I knew about the channel beforehand, and it appeared to me very weird, and I'm really sad that I didn't like go into it further. Because if I had like more information beforehand, this would be even sweeter. But there are videos on Tenet Media, or they were, YouTube since took it down. But there were like videos with Dave Rubin, who is like, he has like, I think like 16 million, a lot of subscribers. And there are videos with him that have like 500 views. So already it's like really weird channel and really suspicious. And yeah, I mentioned, yeah, the charges, breaking of FARA, the Foreign Registration Act, and money laundering. Um, this is sort of basic information. We'll go into more stuff, and I'm just enjoying today a lot as well as yesterday.
Yeah, we might have to go longer with this show, just so Daniel can enjoy himself. I know, Mark, you have a hard out at the top of the hour, but we might just leave Daniel to do a solo for a few more hours afterwards. Marco, your thoughts on this?
Yeah, my thought we're gonna need a hell of a break to stop Daniel on this one because he seems to enjoy a bit too much. Yeah, to me the story is about a bunch of people who comment on various issues who don't bother to find out who pay the bills, and I can understand up to a point why you would do that. Somebody offers you money to turn up and start talking a bit what we're doing now, minus the payment bit, and you effectively start following a certain editorial line which is given to you. However, if the editorial line doesn't match your values, what you believe, what you think, then there is an issue if you accept the editorial line. And if this editorial line is being paid, especially by foreign funds, then we have an issue. If it's just that you're a dummy and you quite like to get the money, you don't care where the money comes from, but you stick to your lines, you stick to your argument and your issues. Also, well, you're just a dummy, but beyond that, you can't be accused of anything else. Now, the issue here is also, why do we need these people in the first place? Why is it that we need people to influence the way we see things, the way we understand events? Partially is because we in society, especially in the West, we are unable to think anymore. We don't know how to think properly. Therefore, you're quite happy to accept somebody who looks like somebody trustworthy, and then you accept what they say. And this is part of the problem here. If you are half a professional and you kind of care about what you're doing, then you will understand that trust is very important. Trust is something that you cannot recover very quickly, especially after this event. Those people involved, those influencers, will find it hard to rebuild the kind of trust and the kind of, if you like, prestige and presence that they have right now, because people will always see you like somebody who told you porky once. So why couldn't they lie to you again? So in a way, if you accept the money without questioning where it comes from, and you damage the trust you built with your audience or whoever, and it's on you. You should have been a bit more careful about accepting money without checking at least where it comes from. And certainly you shouldn't change your editorial line, your points and your views just because your money masters are telling you to do so.
I think to take this from the other point of view, from the audience point of view, when you're watching any of these shows on whatever channel it is, that it's the content of the arguments that is sufficient to debunk their validity, regardless of who's paying the bills behind the scenes. That's the key point here. I mean, a lot of this particular case relates to the channel Russia Today, known as RT, which for many, many years was available on every TV set in the UK directly. So, you didn't need to have another layer of influencers repeating its content. It was there for anybody to pick whatever channel number it was and sit there and absorb Putin's propaganda. It's no surprise that people are unable to analyze what they're seeing, as Marcus says, because they're unable to think, they're unable to look at the content of what they're thinking. But there's also, not. Is this such a surprise? Is this such a big scandal? I mean, you've got a bunch of people who, as far as I can see, Dave Rubin is the one I know best, to be honest, and I haven't watched him for a good while, not since he disappeared. I was going to use an unfortunate phrase, and until he got very close to Jordan Peterson, and therefore I decided, he was less relevant. I could see he got suckered by Jordan Peterson and in his doom-mongered outlook on life. So he fell from grace from my point of view. Now the others seem to be real low-level morons aiming at low-level morons. So it's no surprise that they get suckered into the content of what they're spewing out. And of course, the legal process will play out its course, and hopefully, justice will be done.
Thank you, Jonathan, for the super chat. Thank you, Regina, for the super chat. Robin says, I was going to make a comment about Tim Pool wearing a hat indoors, but now I see Mark. Mark, how much did Putin pay you to wear that hat on today's show?
He didn't pay me anything. This is my preparation for jujitsu. I don't do my hair in the morning, and I didn't want to abuse you with my crazy hair, so I put something over it to save you from turning to stone, which would happen if you saw me in morning state. I'm still struggling to figure out what the big deal is here. Maybe I'm off. Is it an attempt to discredit these alt right news sources? I mean, so many of them now can't be taken seriously. Are they changing their editorial lines because of money they're getting from this particular group of Russians? I mean, I certainly know Chen has gone off the reservation, like Candace Owens has gone off the reservations, and Tim Cass has always been sort of a tinfoil hat wearing dude anyway. I mean, I was on his show for 3 hours, and he spins a lot of conspiracy theories that I can't see him, giving into, the people pulling the purse strings in Russia to talk about those conspiracy theories. I just think that's the way the dude is. So, I mean, the good news is if this is all real and this Russian organization is funding these people, then for a lot of intelligent folks, their news will be a lot less newsworthy. I mean, I don't take them seriously now, but maybe some other people will take them less seriously in the future. Is that what's got you, Daniel? Is that what your panties all in a wad that you like this so much?
I just want to clarify. It's from what they say. Yeah, Tim Pool didn't know where the money was coming from. Dave Rubin didn't know, but Daniel was saying Dave Rubin got paid $400,000 a month to produce one video. What?
Well, I'm trying to remember how it was. Sorry?
But $400,000 to produce Russian propaganda? I doubt that he would do that.
I think with Dave Rubin specifically, well, okay, here is the thing. If Russia is happy to just pay you to continue doing your work, then what the hell are you producing that they don't even need to give you editorial changes? I have a few videos if we want to play them from Tim Pool, but these people were spreading terrible propaganda, anti Zelensky things, that he's stealing all this money. They've been doing this for a long time, and it could be that they've changed their opinions because they are being paid.
Isn't that sort of the conservative line anyway? I mean, these people fall into that, right?
This is so one of the things that came out in this was that the producer, the Russian paying Lauren Chen. By the way, if Rubin and Tim Pool didn't know, Lauren Chen absolutely knew this was her deal.
Yeah,
she was dealing directly with the Russians and knowingly accepting money allegedly in order to produce this propaganda. One of the conversations that came out is her being told after the terrorist attack in Moscow by ISIS at the concert hall a few months ago. being told to have content saying that this was Ukraine when they knew it was ISIS because they wanted to push that anti-Ukraine and by extension pro-Russia line. So
Did
yeah,
she follow
again,
that? Did she follow that in her news reportage? She said it was Ukraine.
one of the somebody mentioned in the indictment as commentator three was the
Yeah,
person, and we don't know who that is. It's not Rubin and it's not Tim Pool.
commentator 3 should be Benny Johnson, which would make sense from what I've seen from him. He will do something like this.
Yeah. So,
Again, you have to, and this is actually something Marco mentioned, the sort of like changing the line. You have to remember Russia or sort of anyone who wants, any sort of lobbyist even, or anyone who wants to, for you to sort of like have his point of view, he will not, someone will not approach me to like start spreading like communist propaganda. Because again, it doesn't make any sense. Even I don't even have that much reach. He would go with someone who's already aligned with that opinion and just pay him to basically make him more popular, make his ideas more prevalent. And in a similar, Russia will not reach people who are completely opposed to Russia and pay them money to sort of like flip an opinion. They will approach people who are already very much align, who are already spreading some of their propaganda, and just pay them to continue doing it more, which is what I think is happening here.
In what respect is Dave Rubin spreading Russian propaganda? I mean, other than the fact that he's turned conservative and he's anti-Ukraine, is that the thing?
I mean, being anti-Ukraine is, I think, definitely you are already very much like into some Russian propaganda.
Okay,
Again,
but
this is not even like a Israel-Palestinian conflict, which you can sort of like imagine someone being on sort of that other side. Ukraine and Russia is much clearer, especially if they if in the indictment itself, if there are specific points they make that for example, Dave Rubin has been making.
Okay.
So what exactly was Dave Rubin producing for $400,000 a month?
So they were different. Again, as I've said, it's not gonna be again that they will just straight up like, it's gonna be like
No, I'm
you
just
just know
asking
what's.
what is the content? What pieces of
So
content?
it was a lot of random stuff. It wasn't even not even all of it on Tenant Media was like politics. There were like there was one video where he just like called out someone that he was a cuck. Again, there were like random videos. Again, it that's the sort of point that Russia propaganda is trying to do, or Russian state is trying to do. Oftentimes, it is just to sow dissent, basically to have as much chaos as possible. So American society is completely divided.
All right.
It's yeah.
Okay, to the extent that we can know, like the specifics of what they were getting, because again, the amount of money. So I heard somewhere that Lauren Chen got paid only $750,000 in less than a year by Russia, which was, again, several people got paid more. Again, they didn't necessarily know that the money came from Russia. She absolutely did, allegedly, but yeah.
So
They
just
were
to
paid by
maybe
the company that was paid by Russia.
Yeah, just to clarify the way this was explained to the commentators. Basically, the way it was done is that the founder one, who is Lauren Chen, has approached these commentators and said there is this one individual, Eduard Grigorian, who is willing to basically fund this project. And when you go into sort of their communication, so there is, I think, specifically with Dave Rubin was asking for information about him, like how do we what is his bio, who is he, or what do we know about him, and there were the I think amount of evidence that was shown to them was, I think, so little to what you would expect. Again, Dave Rubin has been paid allegedly 400,000 a month to basically produce 4 videos for this company, and again, he had very little questions about where the funding is coming from, and
Jesus Christ. Whenever I book a flight using air miles and I get to sit in the front of the plane, I always look up what it would cost if I was actually paying it, and I see like it's thousands of pounds, and I'm so proud of myself for being able to get that ticket for just the miles and the taxes. You get paid 400,000 a month. You don't need to care about that crap. Like you can buy the front of the plane, like the whole section for yourself. Yeah, people like, share, subscribe this channel so that we get more viewers and Russia pays us as well, hundreds of thousands of pounds a month. Marco.
Yeah, well, they probably will get the same results from us, wouldn't they? I absolutely nothing for the bucks. Um, Well, the issue here is that first of all, it's all this information comes from the documents for the indictment, which means that it's all allegations. They're not being proven in a court of law.
Okay, I have to jump in because it doesn't mean that it's like it's just completely made up. Like it has to go through a certain process. It has to go through a grand jury. You cannot, again, you cannot just like write anything there and it's gonna go. If let's say, for example, the reason why we know Lauren Chen knew she was working for Russia is we have Discord messages saying that, oh yeah, invoice this to the Russians, and she was clearly implying the Russian government. She knew she was working for RT. That message, I'm telling you, the prosecution have that message. It's not
So
fabricated.
that
It's
will
not
go
just
to
made up.
so that will go to a grand jury, and then
There was already, this is indictment. This already went through the grand jury.
already indicted. So now it's about going to trial. So she could be convicted of violating FARA. Basically, that's
Yes.
it.
Well, not Lauren Chen. She's not the one being indicted. It's the two Russians who working for Russia Today that have helped her to basically build this company.
Why isn't she being indicted?
I don't know.
Question.
That's a good question because from what I've read, especially the wording of all of them, I think she definitely is as guilty as them. So
I'm very
we might.
disappointed in her. I used to love her a long time ago. I thought she had some interesting things to say, and it looks like greed has gotten the better of her. Don't you think it's just simply greed? They gave her a lot of money, and she doesn't care where it's coming from.
Sure, but I think that makes it even worse, the fact that you would give up on any sort of ideas and just take money.
Yeah, you're a commentator who's
Right.
famous for, expressing your views on things, and then you decide, okay, my views will be whatever somebody who pays me a lot of money decides my views are. Marco.
Yeah, I was going to say, this stuff, it doesn't necessarily mean is proven. However, because it's on the document, it doesn't mean it's made up either. So we have a good sense of what's happened, but we don't know exactly who said what to whom, because some of the names are redacted or replaced with, codes, like producer one, commentator two, or whatever. So we don't know exactly who said what. However, we know certain things have been said. We know certain money has certainly passed money, been exchanged between RT and some people and this media company, which we are right to assume is Tenet Media, but again, we're not 100% sure. Although the people who work for them said, "Oh no, we didn't know about it," so it's kind of admission that that's the right company. But what I was also going to add is that it might well be the case that somebody like Rubin, with a very high profile, very high reach in the conservative side of things, might just have been used as a front to give credibility and weight to the whole enterprise. People like Tim Pool, for example, he made his career by broadcasting from the Occupy Wall Street stuff. He's been swinging from left to right, so I wouldn't really trust him to have any particular sense in what he actually is doing. I don't think he knows what he's doing. And certainly he's the guy who was ranting against Ukraine, saying Ukraine is the enemy, rah, rah, rah. And yes, there is a massive pro-Russia, anti-Ukraine feeling and narrative coming from the conservative side, and all this phony, oh, we're paying too much and all this kind of stuff. It's certainly jars if you think about what the principle is. How can you be against Gaza and pro-Ukraine and the way around? Something doesn't quite square there. However, it doesn't prove that these people knew, or even they changed the lines because they were paid by Russia. So I wouldn't make much of a deal until we know exactly whether somebody actually created content to support the propaganda, the Russian propaganda. However, it's sure that among conservative sides, we hear a pro-Russia, i.e., anti-Ukraine stance, which is a bit too feels not quite right. It's never really quite argued in a principled way, or it seems to be very much emotional. Ukraine is wrong for some reason. We can't really understand why, but it's wrong. And it goes back to the. Sorry.
I'm sorry, but isn't the myth with Ukraine that they have Nazi units? So they buy
That's one of the propaganda pieces.
Well, yeah, and also pushing a narrative that Putin he went in to save effectively the Russian speakers. Well, you don't save the Russian speakers by sending all the other Russians to die for the sake of it. The whole thing doesn't make any sense whatsoever. But then again, you can justify the guy because in 2014, when he first invaded Crimea, we did absolutely nothing. In fact, the EU kept buying more and more gas from him, and of course. Until last year, until the EU started making deal with Qatar and Algeria in order to bypass the supply from Russia, we've effectively been paying Russia until a few days ago. So we don't really have a moral stance to say anything.
I mean, some of the so-called propaganda that is produced here is of the least subtle variety you've ever seen. It's, somebody ranting that Ukraine is the enemy. Wow, that's money well spent, isn't it? I mean, it's as subtle as a sledgehammer. It's completely pointless, to be honest, in terms of convincing anybody with a brain. But I think there's a whole bunch of reasons why I think this needs pulling apart in different ways. One of the reasons that people get so excited about this kind of story, I think, is partly the money involved. And people get sucked into the salacious, gossipy nature of knowing how much a bunch of presenters are earning. Now, whether that's from a legitimate source or whether it's from more dubious lines, the fact that you suddenly find out how much money they're pocketing each episode is gets them dribbling at the mouth, and then the idea that they're no longer going to be able to receive that money is what excites some people. The fact that they're going to be stopped from it. But the point here, I think, is, I mean, look at Russia Today. As I said, the channel that was shown on British TV for ages. Now, George Galloway was a presenter on Russia Today. He was in Parliament until recently. Is he being indicted for promoting Russian opinions? Alex Salmond had a regular appearance, or possibly even a show, is certainly a regular, his own show, on Russia Today. He was the former leader of Scotland before Nicola Sturgeon. We've got plenty of examples of our own people here who were quite patently in your face promoting Russian propaganda with a whole channel on air. So the rot of this goes quite deep, to be honest. And then, of course, you've got the fact that Russia is sometimes used by the other side, by the democratic side, as a way of shutting down, genuine stories. For example, the Hunter Biden laptop issue. Even Anna Kasparian, commenting on this story, referred in passing to the fact that she was suckered in by the Russia conspiracy theory over the Hunter Biden laptop theory originally. Of course, now she was making the point that this is no different from APAC funding. She was certainly raising APAC funding the US government in various ways, or various politicians, or trying to get people elected, as being equivalent to, or at least something that should be looked into in the same way that this story should be looked into. And that's obviously mixing utterly different things, returning straight to a talking point of the Jews are evil and behind everything.
Yeah. Let me just make it clear. I fully support YouTube commentators making $400,000 a month, as long as they're not paid by foreign governments of enemy countries to produce propaganda in support of those enemy countries. Susie says referring to Lauren Chen, she may have been indicted and turned state's evidence. Yeah, I heard that being speculated as well. Really, really pisses me off because she is, very clearly one of the very guilty parties here, allegedly. Mark.
How disappointing, because she was hot and intelligent, and now she's turned into a Russian colluder. So, no, I don't know that she'll learn a lesson. It's terrible. It's terrible to see these pundits that at their very early stages of their lives, I thought had some potential. When I first saw Candace Owens, I thought she had some real potential, and then she's turned out to be an absolute and total nutcase. And Chen has gone off the rails as well. I mean, Charlie Kirk has become another stooge for the right. And when he first came on with his Turning Point USA, I thought he was sort of an interesting cat. I thought he had a lot to say, but they all seem to be corrupt. They all seem to be greedy. I mean, also Dave Rubin is a huge disappointment to me because I was the first objectivist to go on his show. I think he brought on a whole slew of objectivists after that. He seemed to be flirting with the idea of integrating objectivism with his political perspective. And then he ran headlong into that force of negative nature, Jordan Peterson, and was turned aside and forever is lost now to, I think, the right, and part of it is because, as an objectivist, you remain on the fringes politically, and you don't necessarily gain followers telling the truth, but you certainly gain followers throwing out red meat to these constituencies, which is what these guys are now doing. It's a disappointment. It's terrible disappointment.
Yeah, by the way, with Ruben, he had you, he had Rucka, he had Yaron a couple times. Then he had this whole series that he did with ARI. Now I'm
I think he had Encore.
Yeah, he had a bunch of objects. He had Harriet because he had a series with ARI. And I'm not at liberty to get into specifics, but I can tell you he got paid less for that than he got paid a month to produce whatever he was producing here. And yeah, that's disappointing. I also agree with you about Lauren. It's always more disappointing when they're hot and they turn out to be, on the enemy side.
You'd like to think, as Hamlet once thought, and as the Greeks once thought, that beauty is linked to virtue, but unfortunately, that's not the case.
Thank you, Roland, for the super chat. Roland says, installment of your $400,000 a month. Thank you. We are on our way to have Dave Rubin money without Dave Rubin's
What's the installment? How much did he give?
It was two
Swiss francs.
2 Swiss francs.
Thank you, sir. We're on our way.
Yeah, okay. I have to bring up the elephant in the room.
Wait. I still wanna, because we had few things. We had Russian propaganda in the chat, so I just want to debunk that.
Go ahead.
Because before you go into the, so again, someone was saying Azov Battalion is Nazis, again, completely fabricated. I also want to remind everyone that Russia has been engaging in like an insane amount of I think there is a term for it, but basically a warfare when it comes to information warfare. If you follow a Twitter account called End Wokeness, that's a Russian asset. That's the guy behind it is funded by Russia. There's many Twitter accounts like that who are purely just spreading pretty much any propaganda they can get their hands on. Another person in the chat was saying that basically Ukraine has been getting billions just money like going into basically like a safe or something. Again, that's not true. Majority of the aid is basically military aid, the weapons, munitions, things like that. But there is actual money going in, and those were basically to pay public employees, to pay for pensions, to pay for things like that. And all of those are tracked. All of those are monitored. Again, this sort of like things that people in the chat have been saying is like an actual Russian propaganda that Russia has been through different means trying to spread all around the internet. So you see it everywhere. And eventually, you basically, if you don't fact check it, if you don't fact check anything, you will just believe that. Or you will just check a little bit and you just go, well, good enough. And I'm good with that. But, you are being manipulated by Russia. And I think you should be more careful about basically checking where the information is coming from and, fact checking with many different things. And also, if that is the last result, I think you should trust the American government much more than the Russian government. I know it's a crazy idea, but again, falling for this, every government lies, so you discard anything basically America does. Again, I think is basically surrendering to evil.
Chandler says in the chat, the hottest girls are always the craziest. I don't know if that's scientifically proven, but then again, Chandler does think that Candace Owens is the hottest girl, so I can see why he would think that.
Well, as a big fan of How I Met Your Mother, there is actually a chart called the craziness chart. Basically, the more they are hot, the crazier they can be, and there's like a line to under which you cannot go down because
yes, but
they're
How
too
I Met
crazy.
Your Mother was made at a time when jokes were allowed, so we don't live in those days anymore.
Jokes are allowed. You're like Tucker Carlson with that statement.
All right. Somebody says in the chat, I expect a travel vlog from Razi at each VIP lounge. Lounges are my favorite part of traveling well, but I'll tell you what, you get a travel vlog the day you drop your favorite politician, which is the elephant in the room that I wanted to bring up. Yeah, okay. Trump is not responsible for Russia supporting people, commentators in America who support him. But it has to make you wonder, why does Russia want Trump to win so much that they will put money behind propagandists who are also supporters of his, like they're supporters of Trump, and they promote the Russian side in Russia's war on Ukraine. Why? I think that's a question that we should be asking, certainly in an election year. I will get back to you, Daniel, but some people on this panel have not gotten to speak much. Marco.
Well, what am I supposed to say? I mean, Trump, yeah, well, I, I would find it difficult to say that Trump is necessarily spreading propaganda because really all he does is just propagandize himself, really. We recently saw an interview with him when he was talking about his dead brother or whatever. And during the interview, or was it the one with Lex Friedman? Well, anyway, he kind of made the point, oh yeah, before the inauguration day, I will have a deal ready and blah blah blah, usual Trump stuff. But then at the same time, he also, in a couple of occasions, called Trump a bit of a wacko, despotic lunatic. So I don't know whether it's just me or he's lost the art of making a deal, because you don't call the guy you want to have a deal with a wacko and a dictator if you really want to strike a deal. But that's Trump for you. Well, going back to this whole issue, I think ultimately the problem here is, as I've mentioned before, the people cannot think. So they immediately fall back to the tribalist collectivist view that they are used to have. So they see somebody talking, saying something, and if this somebody is someone from a political spectrum that they like, they identify with, then they automatically drop every fact checking, they drop any criticism or challenge or whatever they hear. And that's part of the problem. You always assume that people on your side tend to be beyond reproach. You never question what they say. And ultimately, the issue with objectivists, with students of objectivists like we are, you could not bribe us into giving you a different version of what we actually think, because we know that being a rational, selfish person means that if you lie, if you fake reality, all you do, you damage yourself. So you would never accept money in exchange for your own soul, in a way. And that's why anyone else that assumes that the world is made of, well, perhaps or maybes, I don't knows, and all this kind of uncertainty that people seem to revel in, we'll never have the moral certainty and the knowledge what actually reality is and what's right, true, or false. So if you start questioning reality, of course you're going to fall for everything that sounds remotely plausible. And you're not going to even try and assess whether it's true or not, because first of all, you don't know what's true or not anymore. You question everything. Everything could be something else. Multiverse and all those kind of bollocks that we hear nowadays. So part of the issue is stop being a totally rational twerp and start accepting the fact that you have to use your own mind in order to assess the facts. Don't assume that somebody just because plays for your team is gonna be honest all the time, because things like this will happen and will always happen. It's always happened. So start engage your brain and start evaluating things. Ask yourself who's got something to gain out of this, who's gonna lose out, and why should somebody do this. So and stick to the principle of crying out loud. Your rule of thumb: if somebody invades a country, they're on the wrong side if they just do it willy-nilly. If they don't do it for self-defense, they're just on the wrong side.
I think in answer to your question, Razi, about Russian propaganda itself, it's often crude and its aim is simply to be disruptive. It's nothing more than that. It's just to stir the pot, to create disorder wherever possible. It doesn't matter who is doing it. But one of the reasons that possibly that Trump is attractive to Russian propaganda for them is the fact that he is a disruptor, and you don't know what he's going to do. And he's more of a case of the unknown quantity that could lead a country into a big mess. And you know that all the Democrats are going to be up in arms and fighting, and it's going to be a lot of consternation all the time. So I mean that's one of the reasons I think. But you. And a lot of that is played out in the kind of things that Russian propaganda promotes, how it makes use of things like natural disasters, like what happened in Hawaii, for example, and tries to build up a conspiracy theory out of it, just to create problems within areas and hopefully have people, rioting on the streets of wherever as an outcome. Get the West to destroy itself is the aim behind Western propaganda. To give it more credibility than that is often to oversell it. It often doesn't even know what its ultimate aim is, except to destroy. It's nihilistic. That is its main goal. Yeah. And of course, one of the things that you frequently see in those kind of people who are susceptible to these kind of commentators and to this propaganda is their love of being outside of things, being in a secret club with special information. So everything is a false flag. I mean, they always seem to me like the easiest people in the world to manipulate, because you've only got to tell them one thing and they're going to do the exact opposite. So they're always following the crowd. They're just doing the opposite of what the crowd does. So they really are puppets on a string, even though that's what they're railing against being.
So Anne says in the chat, here we go, Trump's the Russian asset again. This is not what I said. I specifically said, of course, he's not responsible for, Russia supporting his supporters to create, propaganda that they want. I raised a question which I think is valid. Why is it that Russia wants him to win? Now, I've said I can't imagine voting for either one of these scumbags who are running for president. I can understand why a rational person would reluctantly vote for either one. If you're specifically focused on the Israel issue, you're probably going to vote for Trump. If you're specifically focused on the Ukraine issue, you'll probably vote for Kamala. There's definitely a question here why, and maybe I'll bring this up now. So there was a story a few days ago as well of a top aide for the governor of New York, who was revealed to be a Chinese spy. And she was promoting all sorts of woke, the woke agenda. And really, America should take a close look at this. This is scary. China and Russia are enemies. Even if you don't want to acknowledge that either or both are enemies, and there's a reason why they want to sow these type of divisions, and why they would want to promote, bad ideas that are popular with the left and bad ideas that are popular with the right. And those of you in the chat who, whenever we say a word of criticism of Trump, immediately type TDS. Yeah, you should really think. You should think about what America is, how it was founded, what are the ideals it was founded on, and is there anybody in politics today who can say, this person actually represents those ideals, rather than, what, of all the crappy choices, this is who I'm going with. Mark.
I have to say, Trump derangement syndrome goes both ways. I mean, the left is infected with one type of Trump derangement syndrome where everything Trump does, they despise, and there's no talking reason to them at all. And then there's those on the right who love everything Trump does, and there's no talking reason to them at all. So it goes both ways. And I have to agree with Richard. I think the primary motive for these massive disinformation programs from China and from Russia is to sow chaos. I mean, that's precisely what wokeism does. It sows chaos. It makes you even doubt your consciousness. It makes you doubt everything around you. It throws you into a state of existential angst, and that's what they want. They want everybody at each other's throats, and not unified in any way under any particular philosophy. So they've always used throughout their history, they've always used the paradoxes and contradictions within our own culture as a means of actually broad brushing us and identifying us with those contradictions, as opposed to our better principles. And they've done it exclusively to cause division and to cause conflict and war, because that's their MO, man. So and Trump, I think, appeals to them. Again, I'm going to agree with Richard, because he's the crazy guy in the room with the gun. You don't know which way he's going to go, and win or lose, there's going to be chaos in November 2024. If he wins, of course, the left is again going to go to war with the United States of America and with the government, and he's going to be bent on getting revenge. And that sounds like a recipe for total disaster. And if Kamala wins, there's a massive portion of the population that believe it is totally unfair, that the immigration crisis has been for the purpose of building up a demographic of Democratic voters, and it's solidifying their power base for generations and generations. Those people aren't going to be contented, and they might be violent too. So, I mean, all of that works for the benefit of Russia and China.
Daniel.
Yeah, I mean, talking about Trump, scary. Well, specifically, Razi, you talked about, why specifically sort of like all these people are very much pro-Trump. So I've recently seen a video that basically Putin has endorsed Kamala to become a president, and people were sharing this like, oh, see, so being pro-Trump doesn't mean you are a Russian asset. And again, you have to realize it's never like Russian propaganda is not some sort of principled like worldview they just want to share. No, it's always about chaos. So from this indictment specifically, there is I'm just going to be quoting from the indictment that basically says that Russia just wants chaos. When direct propaganda is not effective, however, RT has pursued malign influence campaigns in countries opposed to its policies, including the United States, in an effort to sow domestic divisions and thereby weaken opposition to government of Russia objectives. For example, in discussing RT's coverage of the United Kingdom's exit from the European Union in 2016, an RT journalist recalled to an academic researcher, I asked my editor, what is RT's line for this Brexit? And he said, anything that causes chaos is RT's line. And this is the goal of Russian propaganda, is to basically just spread as much discontent as possible. Now it seems like the best way to do it is sort of being pro-Trump, sort of spread certain narratives. It might easily turn the other way. It wouldn't automatically mean that, now everybody on the left is Russian asset just because Trump or Trump's aligned media are spreading, let's say, Russian propaganda starts being woke instead of anti-woke. As I, for example, mentioned the account and wokeness, it seems like now this is the best way, sort of like blowing up the sort of woke ideas, and basically like that is completely destroying America, and the only way to save it is Trump. It seems like that's the best way to basically spread this division. So this is what's working right now. But again, it might change tomorrow. Don't expect any sort of like principled worldview from Russian propaganda.
Yeah, Marco, you made the point that Russia and other bad actors would find it more difficult to try to buy off rational people, and that's definitely not because rational people don't like money. It's because rational people think about their own life long term and what is best for that. And as much as as nice as extra leg room is in those seats in the plane that turn into a bed, if you are flying into the abyss, that's not a the type of seat doesn't really matter. And that's the thing. If you are actively working for an enemy dictatorship, what do you think? What does success look like, other than what it looks like in your bank account in the immediate future? It looks like a country where you will not be better off, and it doesn't matter how much money you have. And yeah, short-term thinking does lead people to do bad things. It is not rational, and it is not selfish.
Yeah, I mean,
Absolutely.
sorry, Mark, go ahead.
No, I just was agreeing. Absolutely true.
Yeah. As Daniel was saying, you cannot believe a single word that comes out from Russia or China or Hamas or all these kind of actors. We know they are evil bastards who's only interested in the destruction of civilization. We know that Russia has been pushing immigrants from the Middle East up through the Finnish border, so much so that Finland had to close the border. Why is he doing this? Because he loves immigration? No, because he knows that the West is weak, morally weak. He knows that the West will not stand up to anything at all. He knows the West's um, altruism will destroy itself. He knows that no single country in the West will have the moral stance to stand up to him. So he does more or less what he wants. Just look at what happened with Navalny. He's effectively killed the guy, and he goes around saying, "Oh, it's a shame he died because I wanted to release him." And now he's doing the same with his wife. What the hell? If you go down the
What?
sorry.
I didn't. He's doing the same with his enemy's wife.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
She's been prosecuted. I think she's trying to escape or something, but I don't believe she's going to be around for much longer, given what kind of person Putin is. And of course, he knows perfectly well the ideology has a meaning, because he's a son of the USSR. He's a Soviet. He's an old style communist. He knows perfectly well that if you gaslight people, if you force them to believe that what's false is true, you got them in your hand. And he's playing exactly this game with the West. The West lacks the self-confidence and moral stance to stand up to him, and he's playing with it.
I think for all of these people, these commentators, obviously ignorance is no defense in law. And this willful naivety that seems to be initially projected as being the reason that they've got themselves into this mess doesn't really wash. Because the onus is on you, in order to protect your own reputation, to ask the questions about how you're being funded, and to know whether you're shilling for Russia or for British Airways. Your reputation is crucial, to be honest. So, when it comes to people like Dave Rubin, I mean, Dave Rubin is a clever guy. Beyond just being a commentator, he's also set up his own platform and everything. He's had to raise funds and do all of those sorts of things outside of actual presenting. So, you're going to have a considerable amount of knowledge of the need to explore where money comes from and not just take it, and therefore to know what impact it's going to have on your overall reputation and your ability to earn in the future. And all of that's going to be harmed if all of this bears out the way it looks like it's going to.
So, can I just quickly, or do you want to go, Razi?
No, go ahead. Yeah.
So first, I'd like to just say we are not Ayn Rand Institute, and as a UK-based company, unlike Dave Rubin and Tim Pool, we don't take money from foreign entities. So I'd like to just point it out because people keep repeating that.
But we do take money from foreign individuals. So if you're watching from outside the UK, you can absolutely become a member. There's a link in the chat and in the description. Continue.
And then there is. I've been watching one streamer, and he brought up an interesting Arab proverb, which goes something like, first I fight against my brother, then with my brother against my cousin, and then with my cousin against the world. And basically, the idea of it is that basically, and I think Mark has to leave, so maybe
Yeah,
if he
Mark,
wants
do
to
you have
say.
any parting thoughts before you leave? You're muted.
You're muted.
Yeah, Russia sucks. All right, guys, I'll see you later.
See you.
Bye.
Yeah, and basically the idea is that you might you might like fight with your brother, but if someone else tries to sort of like do something to him, you go with him and you don't let like foreign individuals to like do something to him. And this was sort of like something that worked in America. Republicans and Democrats has hated each other pretty much since Republicans were founded, because Democrats were an older party. But when it came to any sort of foreign wars, they were united. You didn't have, like, during the Second World War, you didn't have Republicans like spreading Nazi propaganda to put it out to the Democrats. And I think this really has changed. Now you have like many Republicans, basically, they would rather, especially when it comes to, for example, the Ukraine conflict, they'd rather like spread Russian propaganda and sort of like unite with whatever the Russia says than like, sort of uniting with the Democrats against foreign entities. And I think this is something that's truly or against China, it goes both ways. And I think this is something that is truly disgusting, and it is what countries like Russia and China want, basically, to get one side to rather align with them than basically align with the other party.
Yeah, just quickly, Anne says this buried the story of China spies working for New York's government off the front page. First of all, it's one spy, and yeah, it didn't bury it. We heard the story, and this is a newer story. Also, it's a more interesting story because we don't know who that person was, and we know who all these people are. And yeah, of course, you have media that is more aligned with the left, and they will point out when something bad happens on the right. And you have media who are more aligned with the right, will point out when there's something wrong with the left. Luckily, we hate both sides equally, so we will go after all of them all the time. Thank you, Roland, who says, here's some more money from a foreign individual. Thank you. I will remember that when we are sitting on the private jet while Ruben is well, anyway. Parting thoughts, Marco, Richard.
Well, ultimately, these people, the fact that they can, whoever, Russian or China, whatever, can try and split the public opinion in a country, it's because their government, the government of states, have got way too much power. if the government were stripped down to its legitimate role of protecting individual rights, no foreign power would try to take over the elections because it would be useless. But as long as our government, our mixed economies are intertwined with politics, of course you'll be able to dictate foreign policy. You'll be able to influence how people vote one side or the other. The problem here, again, is they exploit altruism, which is pervasive in the West, which is the cancer that's destroying our society, really, they're destroying our lives, and they take advantage of it. As long as you don't learn to get rid of the government, to start going back to a more rational and less patriarchal, kind of state, like mommy and daddy tells you what to do and they will protect you and all this kind of crap, we're always going to be vulnerable to bad actors like these. And it's only in a rational society where reality effectively shines through, where reason is the tool for survival, that we'll be able to avoid this kind of bad actors working in the shadow, because they will have no power over us.
I think I just conclude by saying that as a viewer, you need not to be blind to propaganda, nor to see it everywhere you look. But you need to, both are the two sides of the same coin. Both are representative of you not thinking and not evaluating the source of what you're looking at. So, I mean, the onus is on each and every one of us to look in detail with an active mind. One of the phrases Ayn Rand uses, which I think is always particularly strong, is it's not just that you have an open mind, open to any possibility, however arbitrary. You have an active mind that is permanently in focus and thinking, and that will lead you to getting to the truth.
Daniel, parting thoughts?
So Bonnie in the chat was asking what is indictment, which I guess we maybe should have started with. Basically, it's like a formal accusation of coming from a prosecution saying this person did this crime. So if you go to the indictment at the bottom, you can like see these are the crimes being charged with. It has to go through grand jury, which despite the name grand jury, it's sort of like a committee sort of basically that evaluates different cases and says to them, okay, these cases can go to the trial. So in the indictment, basically you have from the prosecution saying, we will try to prove these specific crimes, and we believe the evidence we provide, or sort of the evidence we'll try to prove at court, and we provide here in this indictment, we can prove it at court, and we can basically convict the person. And when it comes to the sort of like the weight of an evidence, so in court, it has to be beyond a reasonable doubt when it comes to like crimes and not like civil courts. When it comes to indictment, it's probable cause. So just that's basically, I think, what it is.
Robin says in the chat, I heard a rumor ARCUK was being supported by a Belgian individual. Yes, several, in fact. The Belgian government, on the other hand, is so far not supporting us, but who knows? Maybe they will change their mind at some point. I doubt it. Anyway, thanks. Thanks, guys. We will, if there are any updates on this, we will cover this story again if it's necessary. Yeah, we have Daily Objective coming back tomorrow and Sunday, perhaps something else on Sunday. We will keep an eye out to what is going on in the channel. And the reality show will be back on Monday. But Daniel can't wait until then, so he has something else.
So since I've read the indictment, there are a few like funny like lines there. Can I just quickly like go through them, because I think some are interesting. I might just summarize them and not read them. But basically, so one of the sort of like fake people that were, so the supposed investor, Edward Gregorian, he was supposedly like, he was a creative persona. So commentators would believe this is the person like basically funding this organization. In the indictment, it says basically at some point they agreed to like have a call, at 5 p.m. Central European time, and at 4 p.m. They got a message. The message was sent out to commentators. Guys, I'm waiting for you. It wasn't 4 p.m. in Paris. It was 5 p.m. It wasn't 5 p.m. in Paris. It was 5 p.m. in Moscow. And right after he sent that email, he also made a Google search, time in Paris. And after that, he responded basically, sorry, guys, I didn't have my calendars mixed, which is just super funny. And there are a few things like that basically, there was also one time they were sending email and it was supposed to be signed with one person, and they like signed it with another person because all of those personas were controlled by one individual. But it's just some fun and stuff.
So basically, it was Russian bots funding the whole operation and running it. That's impressive. Yeah. Again, if there's more, we will. I think there's a chance that we will talk about this again. We will be talking about other things on the weekend. Thanks, guys. Thanks everybody for watching, and we'll see you tomorrow.
Bye.